Okay, so we are solving inequalities using addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. So first, you have a couple of vocab words, and I think these are already on your notes outline. I hope, yes?
Yes.
So inequality is a mathematical sentence formed by placing one of the symbols. So less than or equal to, or greater than or equal to, between two expressions. Okay, so less than looks like it opens up to the right. Greater than opens up to the left. And these can also be switched around, depends how you read it. Less than or equal to has the line underneath of it. And greater than or equal to has the line underneath of it. So we're going to look at graphing an inequality. So that is the set of points that represent all solutions of the inequalities. We graph inequalities on a number line. So that's how you graph inequalities. So when you're graphing the inequalities, you either use an open circle or a closed circle, depending on the inequality sign. So if it's greater than or less than, you would graph using an open circle because it doesn't include the number that you started at. If it's less than or equal to or greater than or equal to, you use a closed circle when you're graphing. So it would be filled in like a closed circle when you graph. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to graph the given inequality. X is greater than 2. So this would be an open circle because it doesn't have the or equal to. So I put an open circle above 2 like that. And then it's X is greater than. So I want you guys to write this off to the side. So greater than, you're going to go right. You're going to make your arrow go right. Less than, you're going to have your arrow going left. So since this is X is greater than 2, you're going to have your arrow going off to the right. So that basically means that X can be any of these solutions bigger than 2, but it cannot be 2. Like it could be 2.1, but it can't be 2. Okay, so if we look at the next one, and we'll probably skip some of these. If we look at the next one, X is less than negative 2. So again, this is an open circle at negative 2, and it's less than, so I'm going to go left. Okay, so I want you to try this one on your own. Actually, we'll do this one together. I'm sorry. So X is greater than or equal to negative 4. So this one is a closed circle. You want to make sure that your closed circle is pronounced and your open circle is pronounced. So like if I'm grading these on a test or a quiz, I know the difference between them. I'm not saying be ridiculous about it, like, oh, that's an open circle. But you need to make sure it's obvious that it's open or closed. Okay? So you're going to put a closed circle at negative 4. And it's greater than or equal to, so you're going to go right. Okay, so I would like you to try the next one. Okay, so I have a closed circle at 3. In which direction am I going? Left. And you always want to include an arrow because that does go on forever. Okay, so the next part is we are going to try to write the inequality. So here we have an open circle at negative 6.5, and it is going right. So I'm going to start with a variable, X. So if it's going right, is it greater or less? Greater than. It's an open circle, so I'm not going to put that little line underneath of it. And then it's greater than negative 6.5. Okay, so if you look at the next one, same process. I'm going to start with an X. It's going left. So I have what symbol? Less than, and then my number is 8. Okay, this would be the exact same, except what would my symbol be?
Greater than or equal to.
Greater than or equal to. So x greater than or equal to, because we have a closed circle, negative 2.5. Okay, so we're going to skip the next one. So we are going to start solving inequalities. You're going to solve inequalities the same way you solve multi-step equations. So you're going to use inverse operations, order of operations. There's only one extra part of that, and that is when you multiply or divide by a negative number, you have to flip your inequality sign. That's the only thing that's different, is when you multiply or divide by a negative number, not add or subtract, just multiply or divide, you have to flip your inequality sign to the other direction, okay? So here's our first example. Do you guys have a graph underneath this?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So, all right, so x minus 5 is greater than negative 3.5. So I'm going to solve this like a one-step equation. I'm going to add 5 to both sides. So x would be greater than, what would I get?
2.5.
I think 1.5. Yeah. So x is greater than 1.5. Is this open circle or closed circle? Open circle at 1.5, which is right there. And am I going right or left? It's greater than, so you're going right.
Well, if you look at the sign, it's pointing to, if you look at the greater than or equal.
It's pointing to what your arrow points to?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. So if you pay attention to that, like the greater than or less than sign is going to go in the same direction your arrow would go at the end of your line. Okay, so the next one, x minus 9 is less than or equal to 3. So again, a one-step equation. So I'm going to add 9. So x is less than or equal to 12. So open circle or closed? Closed, and I'm going left. Okay. Next one, we have a little different thing going on here. So 9 is greater than or equal to x plus 7. So this one's written backwards than what we're used to. So I still just have a one-step equation. I'm subtracting 7.
You don't have this one.
You don't have this one?
Nope.
Okay. We'll just move on.
But we do have one similar to this.
This? You have this?
Yes.
Okay. So negative 8 is less than x plus 8. So I'm still going to subtract 8 to both sides. So I'm going to get what? Negative 16 is less than x. Okay, so notice this one's written a little different because the x, we've been having the x written on the left, not on the right. So you can do one of two things. You can write this backwards or you can read this backwards. So if I read this backwards, I mean I'm going to read from x over. So I'm going to read right to left. So I have to read it as x is greater than negative 16. And the reason I have to do that is because I would put my arrow in the wrong direction if I didn't. So x is greater than negative 16, or you could write it as like a mirror image and do this. And just rewrite it backwards. You can do it one of two ways. You can read it backwards or you can write it backwards. So x is greater than negative 16. So I'm going to have an open circle at negative 16. And I'm going to have my arrow going right. So you have to remember to read from the variable out. Like always start with the variable to get it in the right direction. Okay. Do you guys have this problem?
Yes.
All right. So x over 4 is less than 5. What's my inverse operation here?
4.
Multiply both sides by 4. So X is less than 20. So open circle at 20, and I'm going left.
Wait a second, I thought you said you had to flip the symbol.
Only when it's negative.
Only when it's negative. Okay, so we are going to skip this one. Skip this one. What would I do here? Divide by 3. Okay, now we are going to also skip this one. We're going to go to this one. So find that on your paper. Negative 2x is greater than 6. So I have to do what operation here? Divide by negative 2.
And put the
And because I divided by a negative 2, I have to flip-flop my sign. So now it's going to be x, flip your sign, is negative 3. So x is less than negative 3. So then I'm going to do an open circle at negative 3, and my line's going to go to the left. Okay, so if I multiply or divide by a negative, I have to do that. So if you look at this problem, x over negative 4 is greater than 12. So I would do what? Multiply by negative 4, and I have to flip my sign. So x is less than negative 48. So open circle at negative 48, you go to the left. Everybody feel good with that? I'm going to skip to the word problems. Okay. Also, I want to point out something really quickly. If I'm doing number lines on my paper, okay, so I'll go back to this example. If I'm doing number lines on my paper, notice how this number line doesn't have like all the way down to 0 because we're working with a really small number, negative 48. So whenever you're doing this like on your notebook paper, all you really need to do is like a couple numbers before and a couple numbers after whatever number you're graphing. Does that make sense? Like if your number that you're graphing is 25, I don't need you to graph 0 through 25 and then 25 all the way up to 50 or something. You just need to graph like maybe 26 to 23 or somewhere in there, just a small range. Okay, so let's start with this word problem. A restaurant owner plans to place identical bouquets of flowers on 35 tables for opening night. The owner wants to spend no more than $400 for all of the bouquets. Write an inequality to find the possible amounts of money in that the owner should budget for each bouquet of flowers. So no more than 400. Does that mean they can spend 400?
Yes.
Yes, so you could spend 400. So, but it can't be greater than 400. So we're looking at less than or equal to. And then I have 35 tables, so I need to put 35 with my variable. So 35 m or whatever it is. So then solve for m. So divide both sides by 35. So n has to be less than or equal to anybody have that magical calculator in front of them? What'd you get?
11.42.
11.42. Okay, so now this is money. So I would traditionally round money to what? The hundredth. However, if I go up to 11.43, that's going to put me over budget, right?
Yeah, so you have to go round down.
So I'm going to have to round down to keep it 400 or less. So it's got to be less than $11.48 each. Not 48, 43, I'm sorry. Not 43.
Wait.
42. Because if I go up to 43, I'm going to be like 35 cents over around there. Okay? All right, so the next problem. You are checking a bag at an airport. Bags can weigh no more than 50 pounds. That's standard at any airport check-in. Your bag weighs 16.8 pounds. Find the possible weights in pounds that you can add to the bag. So can the bag weigh 50 pounds? Yes. And it weighs 16.8 now. So 16.8 pounds plus W would equal, not equal, has to be less than or equal to 50. Because what happens if you're over 50?
You can't take your bag.
You have to pay extra or you have to take stuff out of your bag. Those are your two choices. So you'll often see that in airports where people will be like opening up their suitcase and pulling stuff out to put in their carry-on or their backpack or whatever. Or they'll be like, if you have two suitcases between two people flying in your family or whatever, they'll open up one suitcase and try to transfer stuff to make them be 50 or less. But so if I subtract 16.8, what would you get?
34.2.
What?
Wait, 33.2? Wait, that might not be right. I did that.
So the weight has to be less than or equal to 33.2.
Okay, okay.
All right. Your assignment is 2 textbook pages, page 359 and 366.